What you talking about? 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 What?
This message will self-destruct. Thanks, Chief. And don't worry, Chief. I'm always on duty. Let's rock the beat. Always on duty.
And what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore. We talked about this. Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage.
When looking for the curve, sometimes you find it's really easy to see the curve. And sometimes it's very obvious, so obvious that you think, how can anyone not see the curve right in front of their eyes? But then there are other times when you can't see the curve. The earth looks really, really flat, unbelievably flat, and the horizon is always rising at eye level, and you've seen many different angles of these long ridges where there's a lot of curvature, hundreds of feet of curvature missing. We've seen as high as 73 miles up, and the horizon is flat. So why do we have these contradicting amounts of curvature? Because we know that a fisheye lens can curve a straight line, especially on these high altitude shots. It can curve a straight line, but it's nearly impossible at this angle to straighten a curved line or to make the curved line bend in the opposite direction. And we've seen the horizon go from concave to convex to flat many times if you've watched amateur high altitude footage or even NASA footage with their rocket launches. And so I wanted to do an experiment on my own. Many people have done similar experiments, but if you have a lengthy flat surface that allows you to get really close so that it's kind of realistic in comparison to where you would be on the Earth size-wise, so you get down low to where the level flat surface is at eye level, kind of where the bottom of this marker is, and you look out, you see that the objects, in this case it's markers, are going out over a curve. It really appears to be some sort of curve that they are going over, and you can make this observation yourself anywhere where you have a surface like this. And that's why with the lake pictures where you saw the power lines going over the lake, from that particular angle you see obvious curve, and you will see that replicated many times from that particular angle, but you'll never see it from up high or out to the side. The only time you see it is from this one particular angle, and that's why those pictures are so famous at proving that the flat Earth was a lie. Okay, any flat surface from that angle will give you the exact same effect. Okay, many times you can repeat this experiment, and here is a good example, and this is what I did was in an indoor environment. Here is an example of an outdoor environment where you're looking across a lake. Many flat earthers have seen this, where you actually can see the water curve. Okay, so watch closely at the water, and it's going to curve. It's not physically curving, but visually you're seeing a curve due to the amount of moisture in the atmosphere acting like a lens. Okay, it's really impressive, the amount of moisture in the air, especially over a large body of water. And you're going to watch this water appear to curve upward, and the shoreline will vanish. Yes, I know it's a mystery, but not really. There's always a scientific explanation for things, even if they go against what you believe. Just like the shoreline vanishing behind a curve, it's not the curvature of the Earth. This can be repeated time and time again. The water is waving like a flag as the amount of moisture in the air changes. This is kind of beautiful to watch. The elusive curve. So that's enough. You can watch this yourself. I'm going to link this in the description. But here is an example of why we have such extreme changes based on moisture in the air. Moisture always acts like a lens. Okay, water does, but even moisture in the air. Okay, that's why this pencil looks curved right here. It's not really curved. You pull the pencil out, it's magically straight again. Okay, and here is an example someone did from ground level. This curve looks familiar, like the bridge, but then you raise up and see not as curved as you thought. It's actually a flat surface, but it looks just like the power lines. So everyday, regular people getting out and doing experiments are finding out why sometimes we see the curve and why we don't.
After these messages, we'll be right back. Back to the show.
And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Little Mac. And it's think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
Hi, how are you? I hope you always healthy. Welcome to my channel, World History Official. In this video, I would like to talk about the moon and flat earth. This is the truth. I will tell the truth. It's painful, but better to get hurt by the truth than comforted with a lie. Before I start it, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon on my channel if you enjoy. And also, share this information to your family, your friends, and everyone. The moon is upon a flat earth. Let us look at the moon upon the flat earth model before we prove this has to be the case. The moon moves around us in spiraling circles above the stationary flat earth, moving from tropic to tropic over the course of 6 months, in an almost identical trajectory to the Sun. One face. All humans on Earth can only ever see one face of the moon, and it appears with the face rotated, with the degree depending on location. The moon covers the full 360 degrees of rotation. Mainstream science simplifies this fact and states the moon is right side up north of the equator, and upside down south of the equator. This isn't true. It appears rotated to different observers in different locations. If the Earth and Moon were both balls, then humans at the far north would see a different face of the moon than those in the far south, with some overlap. The only way we can all see the same face is upon a flat Earth. One can clearly see the moon moving away from the observer, to the vanishing point of a human's eye. Eyes are spherical objects that focus light on the lens at the back. The horizon has nothing to do with the shape of the world, and everything to do with distance. People are fooled into thinking the horizon is the edge of the curve. Phases. We are told the moon's phases are from sunlight via the sun's angle to the moon, but this cannot be the case. This is the mainstream model. But when it is new moon and day in the ball model, we should see a black silhouette. We don't though, we see nothing. We should see a silhouette in the ball model because the sun is so much bigger than the moon and behind it. Also we can see a nearly full moon in the day. This is not possible on the ball Earth, as during the day, the Earth is facing the sun. The Earth would be in the way of someone trying to see the moon in the daytime. Also we can sometimes see the sun and moon in the sky at the same time, for some hours in the days just before and just after the full moon. There is nothing between the sun and moon, so the moon should be 100% lit in the ball model. There is nothing obstructing the massive sun's rays, but the moon appears only 4/5 or so illuminated. If the moon was orbiting the Earth, and both were orbiting the sun, then 6 months later the moon's phases should have swapped over, and each lunar month, the phases should appear different. We are told that the sun gives the moon its light for the phases, but if this were the case, during each lunar month, the moon would be at a different angle to the sun. It would be impossible for the phases to remain the same each lunar month. But they do. Study the two images in the screen to get a full understanding of this. These two images, both present the same mainstream paradox. A. The moon does what it does with its phases each month. B. The moon goes around the sun with the Earth. One of these has to be wrong, but we are told that both are true. You can see from the two images, that the moon should have a different light reflection from the sun, at different locations around the sun, but at the same time and location of its own lunar month. It should actually act like this, but it doesn't, helping to prove the ball Earth model is a hoax. This might need some contemplation, a pen and paper, or possibly a reread. But it is indisputable. Reflection. The moon cannot be above a ball, or the reflection on the ocean wouldn't reach to the person on the shore, but it does reach an observer on the shore. If the moon were above a ball, the reflection on the ocean would behave much differently. See this picture, where we have pieced in the phantom curvature. Tides. We are told that the gravitational pull of the moon alone creates the tides, but this is also wrong. If the moon was 2,160 miles in diameter, and the Earth 8,000 miles in diameter, the Earth would be 87 times larger, and would attract the smaller mass, the moon, to it, not the other way. We are told the Earth's stronger gravity keeps the moon in orbit. So how can the moon's weaker gravity override Earth's gravity at Earth's lowest points? If the magical error-ridden force called gravity existed, all trees would look like willow trees, and all flowers would wilt in an N shape. But that is for another time. The Earth's tides vary greatly. For example, near the Isle of Wight, there are 4 tides a day. Some beaches have tides which go out far, while others not so much. The mainstream map of tides is not uniform, and would not be caused by a single body moving harmoniously across from east to west. If the moon lifted up the water, it is evident that near the land, the water would be drawn away and low instead of high tide caused. Again, the velocity and path of the moon are uniform, and it follows that if she exerted any influence on the Earth, that influence could only be a uniform influence. But the tides are not uniform. At Port Natal the rise and fall is about 6 feet, while at Beira, about 600 miles up the coast, the rise and fall is 26 feet. This effectually settles the matter that the moon has no influence on the tides. Tides are caused by the gentle and gradual rise and fall of the Earth on the bosom of the mighty deep. In inland lakes, there are no tides, which also proves that the moon cannot attract either the Earth or water to cause tides. But the fact that the basin of the lake is on the Earth which rests on the waters of the deep shows that no tides are possible, as the waters of the lakes together with the Earth rise and fall, and thus the tides at the coast are caused, while there are no tides on waters unconnected with the sea. By Thomas Winship, Zetetic Cosmogony. It is affirmed that the intensity of attraction increases with proximity, and vice versa. How? Then, when the waters are drawn up by the moon from their bed, and away from the Earth's attraction, which at that greater distance from the center is considerably diminished, while that of the moon is proportionately increased, is it possible that all the waters acted on should be prevented leaving the Earth and flying away to the moon? If the moon has power of attraction sufficient to lift the waters of the Earth at all, even a single inch from their deepest receptacles, where the Earth's attraction is much the greater, there is nothing in the theory of attraction of gravitation to prevent her taking to herself all the waters which come within her influence. Let the smaller body once overcome the power of the larger, and the power of the smaller becomes greater than when it first operated, because the matter acted on is nearer to it. Proximity is greater, and therefore power is greater. How then can the waters of the ocean immediately underneath the moon flow towards the shores, and so cause a flood tide? Water flows, it is said, through the law of gravity, or attraction of the Earth's center. Is it possible then for the moon, having once overcome the power of the Earth, to let go her hold upon the waters, through the influence of a power which she has conquered, and which therefore, is less than her own? The above and other difficulties which exist in connection with the explanation of the tides afforded by the Newtonian system, have led many, including Sir Isaac Newton himself, to admit that such explanation is the least satisfactory portion of the theory of gravitation. Thus we have been carried forward by the sheer force of evidence to the conclusion that the tides of the sea do not arise from the attraction of the moon, but simply from the rising and falling of the floating Earth in the waters of the great deep. That calmness which is found to exist at the bottom of the great seas could not be possible if the waters were alternately raised by the moon and pulled down by the earth. By Dr. Samuel Robotham, Zetetic Astronomy, Earth Not a Globe. Even Sir Isaac Newton himself confessed that the explanation of the moon's action on the tides was the least satisfactory part of his theory of gravitation. This theory asserts that the larger object attracts the smaller, and the mass of the moon being reckoned as only 1/8 of that of the Earth, it follows that, if, by the presumed force of gravitation, the Earth revolves round the Sun, much more, for the same reason, should the moon do so likewise, instead of which that willful orb still continues to go round our world. Tides vary greatly in height, owing chiefly to the different configurations of the adjoining lands. At Chepstow it rises to 60 feet, at Portishead to 50, while at Dublin Bay it is but 1-2, and at Wexford only 5 feet. That the earth itself has a slight tremulous motion may be seen in the movement of the spirit level, even when fixed as steadily as possible, and that the sea has a fluctuation may be witnessed by the oscillation of an anchored ship in the calmest day of summer. By what means the tides are so regularly affected is at present only conjectured, possibly it may be by atmospheric pressure on the waters of the great deep, and perhaps even the moon itself, as suggested by the late Dr. Robotham, may influence the atmosphere, increasing or diminishing its barometric pressure, and indirectly the rise and fall of the earth in the waters. By David Wardlaw Scott, Terra Firma. The sun and moon together create the tides. The biggest tides are when the sun and moon are both above the horizon and one near to the other. The combination of the sun and moon locations most probably create electromagnetic currents. Tides only happen in the oceans, never in creeks, rivers or marshes. The ocean is made up of salt water, and salt is a conductor of electricity, and therefore has an EMF. Salt molecules are made of sodium ions and chlorine ions, and an ion is an atom that has an electrical charge. Here's a sea temperature map upon the flat Earth. It's also possible this has a bearing on tides too. I've noticed that when the sun is over say the Atlantic then it's low tide, and when the moon is over the Atlantic it is high tide. In my research into electromagnetic energy is that the sun is very energetic to humans, animals and even gives food to plants by chlorophyll. And the moon is the negative energy as it putrefies plants etc. So in studying I've noticed it may be affected by this dual positive and negative together and they work in harmony with the ions in the water and electromagnetic fields. By Anonymous. When we look at tides on the flat Earth model things make more sense. Size, distance, and speed. The moon is 32 or so miles wide, as is the sun. The moon is around 3,000 miles away. Do you really think you can see details on something 235,000 miles away, when you can't see details on a mountain 70 miles away on a clear day? I have a theory that the moon could be as near as 700 miles away, but I would need a sextant to do my own calculations, but I don't have one. One thing's for sure, it is much closer than we are told. Currently, I cannot go against the 3,000 miles away distance. The moon is very similar in distance from Earth as the sun is, but is a bit closer to Earth as the moon appears in front of the sun on a solar eclipse. The moon is anything up to a few hundred miles nearer to Earth than the sun is, but the altitude of the moon, and or the sun too, varies. How do we know this? We can witness total solar eclipses and annular solar eclipses. The moon travels around 60 to 70 minutes a day slower than the sun in a 24-hour period. The moon's movement, forward motion, is not the forward route through the zodiac as we see it in the sky. The moon's travel is the other way as the backdrop of the zodiac spins and moves faster, as viewed from a human eye. This is also the same rule for the sun. The constellations go much faster than the moon as viewed from a human eye, so the moon appears to go through a zodiac constellation each 2.5 days or so in reverse, but this is seen in astrology as normal forward. The constellations only go slightly faster than the sun, as viewed from the human eye, so it spends a longer time in each constellation, about a month. Here are images from Stellarium, showing the movement of the moon from a baseline in southern Spain, then 48 hours later, and then another 48 hours later. The moon really is moving as Stellarium suggests, essentially ball Earth software. Its line in the sky is correct. A new moon is basically when the sun overtakes the moon, as it moves quicker. A lunar overtaken. A full moon is basically when the moon is as far away from the sun as it can be within the current lunar cycle, but the sun is slowly catching up and now moving into the same semicircle. A lunar run but can't hide. Nodes. This image is presented as a fact, with the lunar nodes around the globe Earth, the cause being due to an approximate 5% tilt of the moon's orbits. Within the flat Earth model, this is simply explained. We look up and we see the moon moving above and below the sun's apparent path, which is known as the ecliptic in ball Earth terms. In flat Earth terms, the ecliptic is just a line that shows the sun's path, nothing more. So over the course of time, twice a month, the moon crosses above and then below the sun's trajectory line. See image above where the moon is above the line. Where the moon crosses it, this is a node, in astrological terms. The moon spends half the time above this line, and half the time below this line, from a human eye on our flat Earth. The nodes are intersections. It's important you understand and remember this simple nodes explanation for the eclipse chapter much later on. We will use the term flat Earth node from now on to avoid confusion. The moon at a node is related to eclipses, and to the past and future in astrology. The south node natal placement of a person is what one brings into this incarnation. The north node natal placement is where one can evolve and learn the most, where one should be heading. NASA. Why are there no photos of the moon from one of the thousands of satellites we supposedly have in space? Or any photos from the ISS, supposedly it is manned all the time, but no photos of the moon? The Hubble telescope hasn't taken any photos of the moon, as it is apparently on high zoom mode. NASA has also made some errors with the moon. Here is the moon being supposedly filmed from the ISS. For sure this is a really poor effort at Photoshop, a white circle. Maybe the license ran out and they had to use Microsoft Paint? Here is a famous NASA image on the left, the Earth from the moon. But this is wrong. The Earth is supposed to be 4 times bigger than the moon, but the Earth appears about the same size the moon does from Earth. The image on the left should have looked more like the one on the right if the ball model were true.
And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole, from Little Mark. And I think it's quite stunning that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
Constellations. If Earth were orbiting the Sun, we would see different constellations every 3 months. Globers respond by saying that constellations do change. We see some seasonal asterisms, such as Orion. But we have year-round asterisms, like the Big Dipper in the north, and the Southern Cross in the south, that are visible year-round. And of course, Polaris keeps his eternal watch, above magnetic north. This would be impossible on a globe. Globers like to say, but the stars are really far away. Distance doesn't matter. If we're facing the opposite direction of a star, we wouldn't be able to see it, no matter the distance. If we were orbiting the Sun, we would see different stars all the time. If you have a suggestion on how to explain this, please leave your idea in the comments. Constellations debunk the globe. Constellations are a great topic for flat Earth. The stars in our night sky bear witness to our stationary Earth, and make it impossible for Earth to be a globe. How? Constellations debunk the globe in two basic ways. First, their year-round visibility proves we don't orbit the Sun. Second, their visibility from far-flung latitudes proves the Earth is not a ball. The Big Dipper shows up in the northern latitudes all year round. This would be impossible if we were spinning, orbiting, and whirling through space. So that's debunk number 1. Debunk number 2, the Big Dipper is visible as far south as northern Australia. This should be impossible on a globe, for it would be hidden behind a hill of curvature. If Earth were a globe, the Big Dipper could not be visible from northern Australia. Next, we have Orion, the Hunter. Orion is a seasonal constellation, meaning he only shows up in winter, summer for the southern latitudes. But when he does appear, he is visible all over the Earth. You can see him everywhere on our stationary plane. How could this be possible on a globe? On a globe, it's impossible for any constellation to be visible everywhere. The curvature of the Earth would hide certain stars from view. And yet, Orion is visible all over. Observe the Southern Cross. The pride of Australia and New Zealand, the Southern Cross is visible year-round from the southern latitudes. Another globe debunk. If we were spinning and orbiting, we would lose alignment, remember? The Southern Cross is also visible from northern latitudes, like Hawaii and the Florida Keys. If we were on a ball, the southern stars could not be visible from the north. Southern star trails. Southern stars seem to move in an opposite direction from the northern ones. There's basically two schools of thought on this. One is that refraction causes them to appear to move in the opposite direction, as if seen through water, that is, the waters above the firmament. This fascinating video illustrates the concept perfectly. The second idea is that we have 2 points of rotation, one in the north and one in the south, like two cogs in a timepiece. I personally don't have the answer. If you would like to weigh in, please do so in the comments. To summarize, constellations debunk the globe. And now, how to tell friends and family about flat Earth. You've done your research, and you're convinced Earth is not a spinning globe. But how do you tell your loved ones? A few things that have worked for others. Go slowly. When you share about flat Earth, some people get very emotional. The globe Earth lie touches something deep inside them, and they can get angry and upset. Sometimes, their cognitive dissonance kicks into high gear. They might attack you verbally. Don't attack them back. Stay calm. Start with NASA. For many, NASA is the tip of the spear. It's easier for people to look at a picture of the lunar lander and see its flaws, than for them to comprehend a lifetime of lies. Show them that hunk of junk, or Kubrick with the head of NASA. These visuals can be powerful, and plant a precious seed. Mention the spin. Do you ever feel like you're spinning 1040 miles per hour? Simple questions like these can get a person's mind moving in the right direction. To point out the great weaknesses in the globe system, ask people to apply their reasoning skills to everyday situations. Have you ever noticed the horizon is always straight and flat, even from an airplane? In this picture from 120,000 feet, etc. Send links to your favorite resources. In the moment, they may not seem interested. But follow up with your favorite Twitter account, YouTube channel, article, etc., and later, in the middle of the night, in a fit of boredom, they might click the link you sent them. Be patient. I have received a broad range of responses when I share FE with friends and family. 1. It's not true, and it's not important. 2. Even if it's true, it's not important. 3. It's true, but it's not important. 4. It's true, and important. 5. Violent rage. 6. Meh. So, be patient. People travel their personal journey, and can't be rushed. Somebody told me the truth about 9/11, and it took me years to wake up. So, never underestimate the power of planting a seed. Respect their no, when they prefer not to talk about it, and just wait. Someday, everyone will be a flat earther. Until then, we plant seeds and wait. What has helped you share with friends and loved ones? Please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.
And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole, from Little Mac. And I think it's quite stunning that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
You should be reading your Bible. Reading your Bible. You hear what I tell you? Reading your Bible. 3 times a day. 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 And don't walk away from it. You're perfect. You hear what I tell you? Reading your Bible. 3 times a day. 3 times a day. 3 times a day. 3 times a day.
This message will self-destruct. Thanks, Chief. And don't worry, Chief, I'm always on duty.